He is risen. Welcome to the third week. Well, this is the third week of Easter, but we're going to be sharing our students' responses from the second week of Easter from our Bible reflection journal and share our prayers. Our passage is linked in the description of this YouTube video. And I guess I'll put a link in the post on Facebook as well, so make it easy access. And the passage was Acts 3, verses 1 through 5. We have now moved, obviously, we're in the season of Easter, so past the story of Jesus. Jesus is risen and ascended to heaven, and now we are seeing how the early church, how Jesus followers in the beginning sort of figuring out what it means to tell the world about God's goodness through the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ while Jesus is not physically present with them. So you can read that story from Acts 3, and that might behoove you before listening to these responses. But here we go. Here are our responses, or our questions and then their responses. Okay, the first one is, when some people think of the word gift, they may think of a birthday party or a present. When we talk about the gifts God has given us, we are definitely thinking about all the physical things God has given us, like family, food, and a home. And another way that we can think about the gifts God has given us is to think of the ways God made us really good at different things. Some of the ways that we can love God are by remembering these gifts God has given us, saying thank you to God for them, and then using them to care for ourselves and those around us. In both the mindfulness activity and creative activity for today, found in our lesson plan for week 2 of Easter, we had an opportunity to think about the ways we could show some love to our neighbor and the things that we have, and really with who it is God made us to be. So we asked our students to share what it is that they wrote down or drew for the creative activity, how they then showed love to their neighbor, and what it is that they might imagine were the things they were good at during the mindfulness exercise, and then how it felt to think about those things. So basically to think about the things that God has gifted them with, and then how they can use those. And a couple of our students' responses were this: we can show love by covering our family with a blanket if they are cold. That's great. We can save money and help each other out. Those are great ways to care for one another and to use the gifts that God has given us. Our second journal prompt was this: it's important that we love God and our neighbors, and it is also important that we ask for help when we need it. Asking for help when we need it is one way we can show that we love ourselves, as we are telling others that we can't do this alone, and that we need them in our lives. We asked our students if they could think of a time where they needed to ask for help. We asked them what it felt like to ask for help, and then to share what that was like. One of our students responded and said, "I needed help when my bus came home early and my mom wasn't home yet. I was scared and shy to ask another mom to help me call my mom." That's a great way to care for yourself, though, and to not just be scared alone, but to share your feelings with someone else and to ask for help so that you could feel safe. So that was excellent. And our last prompt was this: throughout our week, we might see or hear of people who are in need. We might see or hear of someone who is sick, or who doesn't have a home, or who doesn't have enough food. Lots of times when we see a bunch of these things, it can feel really overwhelming. It can feel like there are too many problems in the world for just one person to make a difference. But guess what? Even little acts of kindness go a long way. And if we continue to practice them often and with each other, they can grow into bigger and bigger ideas and acts of kindness. Maybe you haven't seen a friend from school for a long time, and you can ask a parent or a grandparent or a guardian to help you look up their address and send them a note in the mail. Maybe you have a family member who's having a tough time having to stay at home. Maybe you can give them a call on the phone and tell them you were thinking of them, like a grandparent or an uncle or an aunt. If you want, you can even invite a neighbor to join you in this act of kindness. And remember that a neighbor is anyone that's close to you at the moment, at this exact moment. So it could even be a family member to help that you could invite to join you. And then we asked our students to share a way that they showed love to someone below. And one of our students said that their mom was crying, and so they started to clean the house and they started to vacuum so that she didn't have to. That's a really lovely and thoughtful way to care for your mom. And our last section every week, I'm having some issues here with my computer. Okay, great. Is that we ask our students, we give them the opportunity to share their prayers and what they would like to pray for, so that we can lift them up together and keep them all in our minds and in our hearts, and also so that they can be heard and lifted up to God together. So before I read the prayers, typically what we do is after I read a prayer, I'll say, Lord, in your mercy, and then our students will respond, hear our prayer. And if you'd like to do that at home, if you're watching, I will leave a space. I'll say, Lord, in your mercy, and then you can respond with, hear our prayer. And I'll say that too. Okay, so there's a few prayers. So we pray that everyone is nice to each other. And we do pray that people treat each other with kindness and goodness and are looking out for everyone's interests, especially during this very strange period of time. Lord, in your mercy, hear our prayer. Another prayer is that we pray that we stay healthy and don't have to go to the doctor as much anymore. And indeed, we do pray for the health of this particular student or students and their family, and for all during this time, that God would protect us and keep us healthy and safe, and especially those who are working to help keep us safe and to keep us healthy. We pray for their health as well. Lord, in your mercy, hear our prayer. And lastly, we have a prayer of gratitude. And it says, we are thankful for our family and the hugs they give us. And we truly are grateful for the family that we have and the loved ones that are close to us, and especially for hugs. Lord, in your mercy, hear our prayer. Okay, that's it for this week. Until next week. Well, also in the link is the lesson plan that you can complete with your students at home for this third week of Holy Week, as we continue to see the church grow in the early days after Jesus rose from the dead and ascended to heaven. Have a lovely week, and may the peace of Christ be with you all. Oh, and get outside because it's beautiful out there.